Welcome to the Songwriter Connection podcast. Our show originates in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. We connect you to the songwriters and the stories behind your favorite songs. Join us as we take a look at the craft of songwriting through the eyes of the songwriter. Now, here's your host, Dave Linehan.
As I mentioned in episode 0 of the podcast, which was kind of an intro to the show and to myself, I am Dave, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm just surrounded by songwriters, which is a very cool thing for me, being a songwriter myself. You see, I enjoy immersing myself into the culture and the creativity and meeting and talking to fascinating people. And our guest today is really one of the most interesting ones I've met in the past year. Even had a pleasure of writing a couple of songs with last year. But before I introduce him to you, I want to talk a little bit more about songwriting and the direction of the podcast. You know, every writer that I meet has a great story or two to tell, and I'm very interested in sharing those stories with you. So on this podcast, we'll make a connection with some of these folks, very creative people. People like to get together. Think about this. They get together and they make stuff up, and then they set it to music. Does it sound crazy? Some of them have carved out quite a living writing songs, and some are just getting started in their journey. And see, I want to talk to those people too and bring you their stories, kind of cheer them on. But if you think about the magic of songs, really, it truly is magic. I mean, a song could be like a time machine. It could take you back to special memories, to simpler time, great memories. A song can lift your mood, make you want to sing, make you want to dance. It can also take you to places that you've never been. And as songwriters, see, these folks, they put these words to melodies that can take you back, do all those things in a very short format. We're talking 3.5, 4 minutes. We're not talking books or novels here, although my guest has written quite a few books, and we'll be telling you about that and his other accomplishments too. But I want to introduce you to him. As a songwriter last year, my guest wrote over 300 songs. That is an incredible pace. You could say prolific, and you can also say that he made very good use of his COVID-19 quarantine time. Let me introduce you through Zoom from Santa Fe, New Mexico. My guest is Bill O'Hanlon. Hi, Bill. How are you this morning?
Hey, Dave. Good to see you. Good to hear you.
Good day.
I always love your radio voice when we're writing. I'm just like, that's the FM voice that I grew up listening to with FM radio. I always love it.
Love songs. No, but it's good to have you on the show, Bill. 300 songs. First of all, how did you do it? 300 songs?
You know, I before I came to Nashville, this is a culture in Nashville, I had really never co-written. For me, songwriting was a solitary thing. You're sitting in a room, pouring your heart or your joy or whatever, your sorrow, your joy, your heartbreak, your love, whatever, into a piano or guitar, which is mainly what I use. And I just couldn't imagine how this could be a collaborative thing. I knew about, Lennon and McCartney and, Rodgers and Hart and all those people that co-wrote, but I just thought, well, that was sort of Tin Pan thing, and the Beatles just sort of stumbled on that great combination, but that wasn't me. And I came to Nashville and I pitched some of my songs, and I got some mentors, and one of my mentors, Sheree Spaltori, who's
I love Sheree. We're hoping to get her on the show.
I really like your songs, Bill, but you should go write. And I was like, yeah. And then, I was like, you have to hear it 100 times. She probably said it 15 times before I thought, maybe I should go write. And then when you get to Nashville, you find out people get up and they do rounds and they say, I wrote this with so-and-so and so-and-so. And we got together one day. And then I heard the culture in Nashville, which was they treat it like a business. You get up and you write a song in the morning with 2 other people or 1 other person or 3 other people. It's usually 3 is the combo to get that sweet spot. And then they go to lunch and they come back in the afternoon and they write another one.
That's right.
How do you do that? How do you,
Yeah.
I would just wait for inspiration to come, but they show up. And, it's funny because you mentioned in the intro, I've written a bunch of books. I've written 30, 39. I'm on number 40 at the moment.
Wow.
And I never waited for inspiration for my books. I never actually didn't want to write books. I didn't like writing books. I loved to have written. So I would make myself sit down, and then the inspiration would come, of course, once you put in some of the perspiration. So I thought, well, I sort of know that from book writing. I wonder if it could work with songwriting. And it does work for me, and I've found it works better and better as I get better at co-writing. To get into a room where somebody might have an idea that sparks something. It's like this conversation between you and me is that you'll say something and it sparks something off in me, and I'll say something and it sparks something off in you, and it's a conversation. And so songwriting as a conversation is a little different from songwriting as a monologue. And you can get inspired by other people. You can get, sometimes somebody will just be sitting there noodling on a guitar and you'll say, wait, play that again?
Oh, yeah.
I have an idea for that.
Yes.
Or they bring in a title or a concept, or someone just starts singing, and you think,
and sometimes
that sounds like the angels.
Amazing things happen. Like I had been playing this melody for about a month and a half, and I played for my wife, and I'd go, "What is this? Have you heard this before?" She goes, "No, but I really like it." And finally, I had a songwriting appointment. Girl comes in, Melissa, my friend Melissa comes in, and she starts singing the same melody on an idea for a song she had to pitch that day. I go, "Are you kidding me? Listen to this." And I played it. I said, "I've been playing that for about a month and a half." So sometimes things like that just happen, and you just got to scratch your head a little bit. But that's the magic of co-writing and getting in the room with folks. Yeah.
There is a magic to it. And you said about, we make stuff up.
Yeah.
The thing about songwriting and the thing about co-writing is really amazing. You walk into a room, you got nothing. Maybe you have an idea. You got nothing. And you walk out of the room, and sometimes you have one of your favorite songs. Sometimes I'm walking around my house singing a song at the top of my lungs or whistling a song or something. And then I realize, ooh, that's my song.
Ooh.
I wrote that. It's as catchy as some of the stuff on the radio. And I think of it like alchemy, like those old alchemists in the Middle Ages. You saw them trying to make gold out of air.
Yeah.
And I think we take air and we make gold out of it when we write songs. It's like alchemy.
That is a great analogy, Bill. It really is. Yeah. Hey, listen, before we get any further and talk about your accomplishments and things you've done, because I want to talk about it, let's play one of your songs. And I think it kind of talks a little bit about what we were talking about in the opening here, music as medicine. So why don't you give us a little intro? Tell us about this song, how you wrote it, and who's singing the demo and everything, and we'll play it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a combination that, as you say, sometimes it's magic, and sometimes you get together with two other people, and it's just the right personalities, right combination of skills. Somebody's a little better at melody, somebody's a little better at guitar, or somebody's a little better at lyrics or ideas. And for some reason, there are some of these, we get together and lightning strikes every time that we write, and this is one of those combinations. Some of my favorite co-writers, my roommate in Nashville. I have a place in East Nashville and a place in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I'm talking to you from right now. Since the COVID, I sort of retreated back here, and my roommate Michelle Canning. And one of my favorite co-writers with that combination is Greg Wilson, who plays out in town all over the place.
He's going to be on our show soon too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I always joke with him, and I hear so much of his stuff on social media, and I've gone out to see him in shows, and I always kid him, and I say, every song I hear of yours, Greg, is fantastic. And I know I write some songs, and I really love writing with you, but the one thing all those songs that I've heard from you have in common is Greg Wilson. So it must be Greg and not Bill. That's what I say. So
I say the same thing when I write with him.
It's Greg and Michelle and not Bill.
Yeah. All right. So let's play it. It's called Medicine, and I hope you enjoy it here on Songwriter Connection, the podcast.
Bills stacking up, too many to pay. Bank accounts are low and the truck needs new brakes. Rough day at work, boss on my back, but I know what to do with days like that. When the world gets the best of me, I put my favorite song on repeat. Music's my medicine, teaching me lessons, soothing my soul and healing my heart. It can get me high, it can make me cry, stitch me together when I'm falling apart. On a country drive or alone late at night, singing along or just listening to a song. Music's my medicine. Watching the news is getting to me. When I start losing faith in humanity, I get on the road and go. And I turn on the radio. Music's my medicine, teaching me lessons, soothing my soul and healing my heart. It can get me high, it can make me cry, stitch me together when I'm falling apart. On a country drive or a lone late at night, singing along or just listening to a song. Music's my medicine. My medicine, teaching me lessons, soothing my soul and healing my heart. It can get me high, it can make me cry, stitch me together when I'm falling apart. On a country drive or a lone late at night, singing along or just listening to a song. Music's my medicine. My medicine.
Great song. Bill O'Hanlon's our guest. We're making a songwriter connection with Bill from Santa Fe, New Mexico on our Zoom this morning on our podcast, The Songwriter Connection. Great song we can maybe hear on the radio someday. I imagine you're pitching that around town. You know?
Yeah, pitching it around that. And just props to Dave Smith for doing that demo and that vocal.
Well, he's amazing.
Although Greg, I wanted Greg to sing it. Greg's like, no, I want Dave to sing it. But
Greg's got a great voice.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
You'll hear him play it out occasionally.
Yeah. And I watch a lot of rounds with Greg and played a few, and he's a great song. He's going to be on our show in March. And he's a guy who's only been in town for just a little over a year, but has really lit up the town. Everybody wants to write with him. Guy. He's playing everywhere around. He's doing it right. So we'll get to know him a little bit later on. So, great song, Bill. And let's get to know you a little bit more. Now, your accomplishments are it's absolutely amazing. Psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, author, educator, public speaker. Am I leaving anything out?
I always joke, a psychotherapist with the emphasis on psycho.
Psycho.
I did one more thing, which has allowed me to be a songwriter.
What's that?
I became an internet marketer. I used to travel around the world and teach workshops on psychotherapy. I'd written a bunch of books on psychotherapy. It was on Oprah with one of them. And,
I was going to ask you about that a little bit.
And I got tired, like touring musicians. You're away from home all the time. You're away from your friends and family. And, it's a wonderful life in a certain way, but it's a tough life in another way. It really disrupts your everyday life and your friendships and family life. So at a certain point, I went through a relationship breakup, a quite big relationship breakup. And I said, I've got to change my life. I'm gone all the time. I can barely function in my relationships or my friendships. And I really like my friends. So I thought, well, everything's gone online. This is about 15 years ago and a little more, maybe 16 years ago. Everything's gone online. I'm not the youngest person in the world, but I can learn. I know how to learn. I really love learning. And so I'm going to learn how to put my stuff online, because I was passionate about my work. I'll put it online and I'll learn to do internet marketing. And I studied with some internet marketers. I paid a lot of money to learn from them. They were making millions of dollars. And I'm thinking, they're selling, this stuff like, I don't know, one person was selling how to train horses in dressage. And I'm changing people's lives because I'm a psychotherapist and I'm telling them, how to be happier and how to have better relationships. So I should be making not millions maybe, but good money doing this and not have to work so much all the time.
Good idea.
So I learned to put my stuff online, create it once, sell it again and again. And I made so much money, I didn't have to work anymore. And I was a hippie back in my older days. I was listening to your Billy Lee podcast. We're about the same age. And the Beatles was my first live concert. So that sort of carbonates me.
Wow.
And I was a hippie back in the day. And I didn't really deal with money. I didn't know anything about money. I didn't want it. I didn't want to deal with it. And so therefore, I was always thinking about money because I never had any. But at a certain point, I just mastered the whole money thing. It's like, wow, I've made so much money online that I can do what I want. And one of the things that it was a long time dream of mine because I've been doing it over the years, but not full time and not seriously with songwriting. So that sort of, I went through that psychotherapist journey. I loved being a psychotherapist. I loved helping people and reducing their suffering, or maybe helping them not kill themselves, serious stuff. And I was a relationship therapist. So now being a songwriter, I have pretty good insight into what goes right and what goes wrong with relationships, how people fall in love, how they fall out of love, how they get in trouble. So I have a million stories that I can draw upon. Yeah. So that has helped my songwriting.
Well, and you talk about all these books that you're on your 40th book, and 3 of which are songwriter books, right?
That's right.
Tell us about those a little bit.
Yeah, when I came to town, and it's funny because you said you want to talk about the Oprah book, but
I do.
I wrote a bunch of books, and then probably, I don't know what it was, my 20th book, 25th, something like that.
Yeah.
I wrote a bunch of books for psychotherapists, then I started writing books for people in the general public, which are called trade books in the trade.
Right.
And one of them got on Oprah, and it was featured the whole hour, and it sold a good amount of. It was published by HarperCollins, called "Do One Thing Different."
One Thing Different.
Ever since I've been on there, it's like a songwriting thing. If you got a CMA award or a Song of the Year or whatever. Every time someone introduces me and they get to that part of Bill's had this book that was on Oprah, he was featured on Oprah, people sit up when I do live speaking. They sit up in a different way. They're like, oh, I guess we should pay attention to this guy.
The Oprah guy. Yeah, so, there's the Oprah guy.
that happened when I went to Nashville. I had a bunch of people, and someone would say, oh, yeah, they'd introduce me. Hey, Bill's written a bunch of books. One of them got him on Oprah, and people were like, what? So... two of my mentors were, I'm actually wearing the t-shirt, Songtown.
Great organization.
Start Songtown. But Marty Dodson and Clay Mills, both hit songwriters, had several number ones, 6, I think, a piece, maybe more, and a bunch of other cuts. Started this online community. And when I started to get serious about songwriting, I just Googled online songwriting instruction and community. So I joined Songtown early on, and they were great mentors, and I got to know them personally. And Marty and I went out to coffee in East Nashville, where we both live, at Sips Coffee House. And he said, tell me a little about yourself. And I was talking about the books, and he goes, I've always wanted to write books. Oh, yeah? Well, what? And he'd written one sort of, a small one years ago. And he said, I want to write 3 books, and he told me about them. And one of them was about lyric writing, which is his specialty. And he had a particular slant on lyric writing that I'd never heard before. And I learned it in Songtown. And I said, well, that's a great idea, and I know how to write books. Just pick my brain. And I went home from Nashville to Santa Fe, where I spent 20 days a month in those days. And I was 10 days in Nashville. It's one of my superpowers. I just am good at outlines. I was driving home one day, and I had the outline for the book that Marty should write. And so I sent him the outline. I said, here's the outline, because I studied his stuff, and I studied lyric writing with him. And I said, if you want to write it on your own, here's the outline, take it and go. And if you want me to write it with you, I know how to write books. I'm fast. And I wrote that book in about 3 weeks part-time and sent it to him. We went back and forth a few months and added and subtracted and edited it. And it was out before we knew it. And it's called Song Building, and it's Mastering Lyric Writing. And it's got an idea in there that when you said, how do you write 300 plus songs a year? If I didn't have that idea, I wouldn't have been able to write 300 plus songs a year. Co-writing and having that idea that Marty has put forth in that book. I was really his amanuensis, just the guy who sort of facilitated the writing of it. And I used some of the writing that he'd done on his blog as part of it. And it just lays it out really well and makes it faster. So co-writing and having a way to organize yourself, to think about the idea that you come up with and make sure you write it clearly and write it quickly. That was key for me for writing all those songs. So once I did that, Clay, his partner in Songtown, is more of a melody guy, or is known more as a melody. He does, but they both do lyrics and melody. But Clay said, well, I want to write a book with you. Melody, let's write a melody book. So I said, I think that'd be great. But when I first came to Nashville, because I'm a reader, I love to read. I read a couple of books a week. I couldn't find a book about co-writing. And that's a hole in the market. He said, well, maybe we should write that, because I'd taken a class with Marty and Clay on co-writing, and it really helped me be a better co-writer. So we wrote that book, and now Clay and I have just finished. It should come out maybe about the time you're talking to Greg Wilson, maybe in March of 2021 here, a book called Mastering Melody Writing. And that was a harder one to write. Lyrics are easier to write about than melody, but we pulled it off. And just like Marty has some great ideas about lyrics, Clay has amazing ideas about melodies and making your melodies better and editing your melodies and making them hookier. And so a bunch of techniques that have just elevated my melody writing to another level altogether. So I'm really excited about sharing that with you.
These are essential things, Bill, if you want to be a songwriter today. So I highly recommend people pick up these books. I read Song Building and very much enjoyed it. I got mine on Kindle. Where else can they find your books, Bill?
They're on Apple, they're in Apple Books, they're in Kobo, they're all the ebook formats, and then there are print formats you can get it. Some people like the print version, some people like the ebook versions, but the second one's called The Songwriter's Guide to Mastering Co-Writing. Okay. So and they're Songtown Press, and you can get them through all the online, and Amazon is where most people buy them these days, but you can get them through Songtown as well if you want to go through Songtown and check them out there.
Are you reachable too online and things? You got a website and things? Tell folks about how you reach?
Yeah, not really. Since I did make my money online, I just I used to have this website that was all selling stuff and trying to promote myself. I actually disappeared from the web because I had so many people. I have 47,000 people on my email list who write me all the time. I'm like, I don't want to get any more emails. So I do have a website called BillO'Hanlon.com where you can go and just more page, information. You just find a little about me. That's it. Go. And then I have some music pages, but I'm the songwriter. I'm not the artist.
Well,
I have 11 indie cuts, and I have a little playlist on Spotify of those indie cuts, but that's about it.
Say, we can check out more of your music on Spotify. So, hey, let's talk about sync writing right now. This is a new concept not a new concept, but I mean, it's a lot of songwriters are pursuing it. Can you tell us a little bit about sync and the success you've had with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that go into this. One is I've been writing mostly country because, when I came to Nashville, it's the closest to what I was writing on my own, sort of singer-songwriter, more story-oriented songs. And, Garth Brooks came in, and it was like he was influenced by James Taylor, me too. And so that brought that tradition in there. And I thought, well, country's the closest. The stuff that's on pop radio is a little different from what I'm writing. Rock, I don't really rock out that much. I was in some bands, but I'm mostly a singer-songwriter kind of thing. But here's the problem these days with country. Like getting a country cut and getting a country hit is like winning the Mega Millions lottery. It's pretty unlikely. You got to be writing at a high level, and then you got to be lucky and get the right song to the right person at the right time. It's a lot of magical things have to happen to make it happen. It's doable because people do it all the time, and new writers come to town and they do it all the time. But sync is you can write any variety of music you like: singer-songwriter, pop, R&B, 60s, British pop, Brit pop. You can write anything, and there's a need for it somewhere, and they call it sync because it's short for synchronization. It's music that synchronizes with video, or moving pictures. So it's in TV, movies, and commercials. And so you hear an Apple commercial, and they've got a cool song on there. That's sync. So it's easier to get a sync placement than it is to get a pop or a rock or a country hit or an R&B hit or a hip hop hit. So I decided, well, I'm going to spend at least part of my time doing that because I just love writing songs. And as you said, I've written a bunch. I'm already it's a little month in. I've already written more than one song a day this year. So I'm pretty prolific, and I really want to get my music out and get it heard. And when I'm watching Netflix, I'm hearing songs all over Netflix when I'm watching shows.
Me too.
Movies or TV shows or commercials. And so I'd like to get my songs heard by millions of people. That's partly why we write, because we want to communicate with other people and move other people and touch them emotionally or melodically or get them up and dance, as you say. And so sync for me was a lot easier to get in. And I got my first sync placement this last year. I was an apprentice in songwriting I've only been doing it seriously for about 5 years. And they say Nashville, they always say it's a
10-year town.
So I figured, okay, I'm about halfway through. But I've already had more success than I imagined because my mentors just said, just put your head down and just learn to write better and write a lot of songs. It's like that 10,000 hour thing. You just get better at it. You find your best co-writing partners and you develop relationships in the world, in the music world. So I just started pitching my songs seriously in the last year. You and I have been on some pitch things together. We were on one last night, actually.
That's right.
And you got a song taken, and I got a song taken.
And you did, yes.
Publisher,
Congrats.
Which is really nice, which is very nice, for both of us. I've written a bunch of songs, and you have to own the masters, the master recording. Like, it has to be radio ready, as they call it. And you have to own that master to be able to pitch it to sync. And most of the time in Nashville, we're doing demos, which are not radio ready. They're not to that quality. And also, you don't own the master. You paid a demo rate, and the musicians say, if you want to pay for a master, you have to pay more.
That's right. Yeah.
Most songwriters are not going to do that because it costs a bit more money. But I happen to have a bunch of masters of my country songs because I had a fair amount of money when I first came there, and I didn't know any better. So I would just hire people to do master level quality things. And I pitched some of my country songs. Someone said, is rare in sync, but we need some country songs for a CMT series. So I pitched it. They didn't get into the CMT series, but the next month I got a placement on an MTV show, a reality TV show called Bush Family Brood.
All right.
And it was instant money. It was like, what? It's $1,000 placement. They shared, the people who pitched it shared $1,000, and I got $500 within a week. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty good. That's mailbox money. And then I make money on the back end because as a songwriter, get royalties when they play it. So I'd like to do a little more of this because it gives me the freedom to go outside the country genre. And since the first of the year, I've had 10 songs taken into music libraries or by music supervisors who are looking for music for movies, TVs, and commercials.
Well, that's great. I've got a little sample of one right here that you sent me called "Can You Dig It?" And that should be in a iPhone commercial. I swear, a Verizon, something like that. So, well, let's listen to a little bit of it.
Verizon or anybody. It should be in one of those. If anybody's listening, there's an advertisement.
Get an idea of how catchy this is.
It.
Yes. Can you dig it?
Sweeter than a sugar cookie, hotter than the 4th of July. Loving how the whole thing hooks me. Oh me, oh my. Tat, 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 da da do da. Are you feeling me now? Tat, 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 da da do da. Wow, wow, wow. Do you wanna take a ride? Feel the vibe. Come alive. Can you dig it? Do you?
I can dig it, Bill. And I can hear that in a commercial for sure.
I can too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Visualize that commercial with the phone spinning around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That is fun. And it was, it's such a joy to write music that has nothing to do with country music, which I've been focusing on and I love. But it's like, okay, just break out and write something that's totally different. So it just frees up one's creativity and you get to write in a whole different style. I've never written in that style before, but there was a brief that said we want something for a telephone commercial and it needs to be in glitch. I had never heard of glitch. I had no idea what glitch is, so I went and listened to a bunch of glitch examples and we wrote that song, and it's great. I write that with my sync partners. I have a group, a couple of producers and songwriters that I work with. Mark Dolan.
I was going to mention,
and Chris Ising up in Canada. And we just pump out the songs. We've written 20 songs this year so far.
That's great. Sync, so that's great. Reminds me of those like Grubhub commercials and the new Kroger campaign, with the claymation kind of like animation.
I'm not attached to a telephone commercial. If the money is for Grubhub, they can twist my arm.
That'll work for you, right?
That'll work. As long as they pay the sync fee, I'm good.
Bill, I can't tell you how great it is to have you on the podcast. It's good to get to know you a little bit more and to listen to your music. I wish you complete success because you're just setting it on fire. And I'm so proud of what you've accomplished and done in such a short amount of time. And like you say, your book, you do one thing different. I mean, it's an incredible book, and I and this is the one that got you on Oprah, and it's good words to live your life by. And you're an amazing guy, and I certainly appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, we've had a great time writing together and getting to know one another. And, we sort of circled around each other because you knew people I knew and I knew people you knew. And I was like, I was hearing your name all the time.
And it was the same way. Every time I was at a round, I'd hear a song and they'd go, that's a great song. And they'd go, well, I wrote that with Bill O'Hanlon. So I just knew I had to meet this guy sometime.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I listened to your first interview with Billy Lee, who's a buddy of mine as well. And boy, this is such a great series. I can't wait. I was just riveted with everything Billy was talking about, his journey, and I can't wait to hear so many more journeys. So I really appreciate you having me on, and
it's my pleasure, Bill.
I'm so excited about songwriting, and I just want to share it with the world. So.
The plan is to have a new show every other week, and the first season is going to be 20 podcasts long. Next show will be with a country music radio broadcaster Hall of Fame member who I got to work with in Cincinnati, who's an incredible songwriter, does comedy stuff and serious stuff. He's been on a Grammy Award-winning album. His name is Bill White, and we'll make a connection with Bill. You know Bill, he's a great guy. He'll be on the show next time. And we're going to take it out today with a song called Southern Nights, Bill, that you wrote. Tell us a little bit about this one.
It's a funny thing. When I was in Nashville, because I know a little about marketing, I would brand myself, and I would always wear this pork pie hat, the kind that they have in Breaking Bad. If you don't know what a pork pie hat is, that Heisenberg wore when he first changed. When he first changed his appearance, and I love that hat. I live in New Mexico, and they were selling Heisenberg hats. Like, I got to get myself one of those. So when I go to Nashville, I'd always wear that. And actually, a publisher recognized me within a couple of years, Woody Bomar. He's like, I recognized you by your hat. I was like, oh, that's working. That's really working. One day I was at a songwriting event, and I met this guy with a similar hat. And we just started chatting, and I said, songwriter? And he goes, yeah. I go, yeah, I'm a songwriter too. And he goes, well, we should write sometime, man. So I gave him one of my books, and we wrote. And this is the first song that we wrote. He just came to my house. It's called the Hit House in East Nashville. Sat down. And he said, driving over here, I had this idea, Southern Nights. I sort of grew up in the South, and I have these memories. I'm like, let's write it. And we wrote this song. And later he said, what do you think about making this a duet? I was like, oh, it sounds like, I can hear it. It sounds like Faith Hill and Tim McGraw, and so like, let's do it that way. So we just changed the words a little, and we this is our song.
All right, Southern Nights. Bill O'Hanlon, our guest. Thank you, Bill. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Dave.
I remember sneaking out, trying not to make a sound, heading down that gravel road to the swimming hole.
Magnolia shade all around. You slipped off your moonlit gown. Then you turned to me and said, let's dive right in. Those southern nights when we were younger, those southern days, we felt the heat, the hunger, that southern love. Yeah, it ain't like no other. When the sun goes down, you want it to last forever. And those southern nights, born to be a southern belle, but you were always raising hell. Nothing could hold you down, so wild and free.
We were always 17, on the edge of everything,
living every moment like it would never end. Those southern nights when we were younger, those southern days, we felt the heat, the hunger, that southern love. Yeah, it ain't like no other. When the sun goes down, you want it to last forever. Those southern nights. wanna go back sometimes. I wanna go back sometimes. I wanna go back. I wanna go back sometimes. I wanna go back to those southern nights when we were younger. Those southern days, we felt the heat, the hunger. That southern love, yeah, it ain't like no other. When the sun goes down, you want it to last forever. Those southern nights, when we were younger. Those southern days, we felt the heat, the hunger. That southern love, yeah, it ain't like no other. When the sun goes down, you want it to last forever. Those southern nights, those southern nights.
What an amazing song, Bill. Filled with so much energy and so many wonderful memories. And it's kind of like we were saying, songs could take you to places you've never been. If you've never been in the South, you get the feeling from that song. And just a great job. Who were singing there on those demos? Do you remember?
You know, to tell you the truth, my co-writer Sam Music did that, and I've forgotten it was Alyssa, I think is the female,
with over 300 songs a year,
last name.
it's not
I'm
surprising.
sorry, I'm terrible at that, but I should write it down because people have asked me that before. I just think they did a great job.
It really was great success to you on that. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely,
yeah. And
when we could do it in person after COVID. We can do it in person. I'll bring my guitar and piano, and
we'll do it right here around my dining room table. So
I will play one of the songs we've written.
Oh, that would be cool. That'd be very nice. Yeah. Join us on the next Songwriter Connection podcast with our guest, Bill White. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for listening to the Songwriter Connection podcast. Find us on social media at Songwriter Connection. Also, listen to Dave Linehan's Nashville Connection radio show. It streams live every Friday morning on WOBL and WNOI. Look for us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next time on Songwriter Connection.